Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this double-sided embellished beaded Kumihimo bracelet, and this is what it looks like here. You can see on this side we have black and then we have the embellishment on the side, but then on the other side, which in this case is on the inside, we have another colour of beads on the braid, so that's white ones. So this is what it looks like. So you just have the one colour on one side and the other colour on the other side. So you can say it's double-sided and it's almost like two bracelets in one. So this is it. And as for the sides of the bracelet here, the length of the braid itself is about 7 inches. So that's from one end to the other, but it does depend on your tension, and also that's why I like to use my extender chains here with the clasp, just so obviously so it'll fit different sizes. But the length of the braid itself is that. But then just to show you what it would look like on. So this is then with the one side facing outward, so just the black ones in this case. But you can see because the embellishment on the side there, it lies really nice and flat and comfortable on the wrist. But then if you want the other colour, all you do is flip it over and then it looks like that. So you just almost have, like I said, two bracelets in one. But if you want to learn how to make this bracelet here, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. First of all, here I have my round Kumihimo disc because it is a round braid that we're making. And to help make the braid, I'm using this 0.4mm S-lon, and I'm using a black one to be a nice neutral background colour. You can make your cord match your beads if you want to. And as for the beads, I've got a few different ones here. These two, the black and the white, are both 8 Omiyugisi beads. They're going to be kind of the basic part of the braid. And obviously I'm using the black and the white for the contrasting colours for both sides there. Black on one side and white on the other, just to show the difference. And then also for the braid we need our SuperDuos, and this is a magic red brown colour to add a bit of colour into the braid here as well with the black and the white. Obviously you can choose whatever colours you want to. And then we need to add in our embellishments on the side. I have my bicones here. These are 4mm bicones, nice neutral colour, and then also 15 OC beads to add in with the bicones for the extra spacing. And then I have my Kumihimo ends to help finish off the bracelet, and then also my findings, so extender chain, lobster claw clasp and jump rings here. Obviously you can choose whatever you want to. So let's get it all together and let's get started. So then what we'll need first of all is some lengths of cord here of our S-lon. So I've got 4 lengths of about 1 meter each, and what I've done is I've put all the ends together to get them level, and then I put all the ends together again, so I fold them over in half, put the ends together so I find where the middle is, so up here, and then I tie a knot just to hold them all together, and also so I know that's the midpoint. And then I just put a piece of scrap wire around that. You can choose to use a Kumihimo weight or something else just to keep it, so you can use this to pull it down through the braid. So now we need to attach these cords to the disc. So what you want to do is put that midpoint, so the knot, in my case with a bit of wire there, down through the centre of the disc. And then we need to distribute the cords around the disc. So I'm not worrying about the numbers, I'm just putting one length of cord on each side of every dot there, so all 4 dots. There we go. So that also means the cords have been doubled over, so fold in half, and each one length of cord now is turned into 2 working lengths we're going to be using. So I want to start out with just making a bit of a braid here with just the cord before I start adding in any beads. So what I'm going to do is take my top left cord, I'm holding the disc like this, so the top left one around that dot, bring it over the middle and down, and stay on the left side of the bottom pair here, so we're always working with opposite pairs. And then I'm going to take my bottom right one and then bring that up and stay on the right side, and that was that pair. So now I need to turn my disc and move to the next pair, and I'm going to do the same thing. So now the top left one, bring that down, stay on the left side, the bottom right one, bring that up and stay on the right side, and again that was that pair, turn to the next one, and then just keep repeating that. So basically do your movements, top left one down and bottom right one up, and then turn your disc, and just keep doing this until we have about 1 to 2 centimeters of braid. So now that I have that little short section of braid there, you can start to see as what's going to be coming out of the back. Then now is the time when we need to start adding all our beads onto a length of cord here. So this is then how the bead setup is here on all the lengths of cord. So I've also taken a picture of this setup and I put that on my website along with the description, a text description on how to put them on. And I'm going to put a link to that in the description box below here, so you can go and find that. Might be a bit easier to look at that picture in the description rather than me going through it here. But then this bead setup is to accommodate for the way I work, so I start with my top left one here, that's the way I naturally work. So if you start with the top left one or the bottom right one there, because it's the same thing, then you'll want to set the beads up in the same way as here, But if you want to start with the top right one or the bottom left one, which is the same as each other, but it's opposite than what I do, then you need to set up the beads a bit differently. And what you need to do is set them up in the mirror image. So imagine you have a mirror in front of it, and then you want to set them up in that mirror image there. So that means that the cords will swap with each other. The top two here would swap over. It's not the cords themselves, but it's just the bead set up. Would swap over with each other. The bottom ones would swap, and the side ones here would swap over the middle. So the top two swap over the middle, and the bottom two will swap over the middle. And that achieves that mirror image that you'll need in order to achieve the same effect. But then what we need to do is start incorporating the beads into the braid. So to do that, you just want to continue your braid in the same way as before. So that means I'm going to take my top left cord next, but as I'm releasing the cord, I also want to grab my very first bead. So the very first bead at the top that I run into here, let that drop down as I'm releasing the cord, and then all the way into the middle there. Make sure your beads go underneath the cords in the middle, and as you're bringing that over and down, and then it also stays underneath the cords. So and then take my bottom right one, release and drop down my first bead as I'm releasing the cord in the disc, and make sure it drops down in the middle there, underneath the cords, because that's what's going to make the beads go on the outside of the braid, which is what we want for this one. Turn your disc, just like before, and then just continue adding in your beads. Always making sure that they drop into the middle there. And then keep doing this until you used up all your beads. So now that I added in all my beads here as I was braiding and I don't have any more left, then what we want to do is make a little section of braid at the end here, just like we have in the beginning. So we have something to finish it off with. And all I'm going to do is continue braiding, but without adding beads in, because obviously we run out. So just continue the braiding the exact same way, and then your cords in the middle here will naturally singe in. And again, do this for about 1 to 2 centimeters. So now that we have that little section here, then what I want to do is to secure the end so we can get the braid off of the disc. And what I'm going to do is take 2 cords that are diagonally opposite each other in the pair of cords that I was due to take next, so not the pair that I just used. So I'm going to take these 2 here, bring them across the middle, and then tie a knot. Just like that. And then take the other 2 cords from the same pair, again that are diagonally opposite each other, and then tie a knot across the middle. And tighten that down at the end of the braid. And then I'm going to move to the other pair and do them cords as well. So this is just securing the end, like I said, without adding too much bulk, so we can securely take it off the disc without it coming undone and working with it a bit more. And the final 2, across the middle, tie a knot, and then because this is the final one, I like to just tie a double knot. It just holds it a bit more secure, so we can keep working with it without the single knot coming undone easily. Like that. And then we have the finished braid. And then the end there is nice and secure. Obviously we're going to get rid of all the excess cord, but we're going to keep working with these as well. So this is then how the braid looks. So we have the double-sided here, 1 colour on each side, so the white and then the black that I just used for contrasting colours. And then with the SuperDuos, they're running along the edges. And we're going to add the embellishment in with them. But what you also might just find is that your braid might have a little bit of a twist to it. So you can see here, coming off the disc. Don't worry about that too much, it's quite natural. You can just kind of twist it a bit in the opposite direction, that'll help it settle a bit more. But also once we add in our beads and embellishment on the side, that'll also help straighten it out a bit. So now what I want to do is just finish off the ends here because I want to get them ready. So all I have to do is add the embellishment before we finish off the ends with the actual Kumihimo ends. So all I'm going to do is put some glue around the ends of the cord where they're coming out from, and then cut them down. And on the other end, I'm just going to remove my wire here. And then when we have that, we're ready to use this braid to then start adding in the embellishment. So then the next step here is to then get our needle and thread. So just taking about a wingspan of my thread, it's just what you're comfortable working with, and then put my needle onto one end. And on the other end, I've also put a long tail through there. I've got a little knot here, so it's just a stopper to when we put this through the braid. So what we need to do is first of all start from one end here, and we want to attach this thread just to the braid to begin with before we start adding in the beads. So I'm just going to start one end and go straight through the braid, and this is the section of the braid where we don't have any beads in. So just like that, And then basically what I want to do first is just go back and forth through the braid here a few times. So move a few millimeters away from where you came out and go back through the braid again. And I just prefer to do this because it helps kind of make it a bit more secure. The end here obviously, before we then start adding in the beads. So now I've gone through it a few times here. What I then want to do is start moving upwards towards the beads. So I'm just going to go through my braid again, but then kind of in the middle of it, I'm going to work upwards and come out right below one of the first beads here. So just like that, pull it all the way through again. Because I want to then seamlessly make my way into the SuperDuo there, so the first one. So what I'm going to do is go through the bead then, the very first one that I'm coming out in front of there. So just straight through the bead, it's obviously in the braid already. And then I'm going to go to the next bead. Now this bead is then the one we're going to start adding in from. So you want to go through one that's basically right in front of the first SuperDuo. So there's going to be two beads right in front of there, and then there's the one right across from it. So you have a bit of space in between. I'm going to go through that one. And then between the SuperDuo, like I said, and this one that we're going through now, there's two little seed beads kind of set next to each other, making a bit of a space. And then I want to start adding in my beads. And this is where I'm going to be using my bicones, and then also my tiny little 15-0 seed beads. So I have them ready here. And first of all, we're obviously coming from kind of before the midpoints between the SuperDuos. So we just got to get up to the very first SuperDuo. To do that, I'm going to take one of my 15-0s, and then I'm going to take one of my bicones, and then go through the outer hole in that very first SuperDuo, so the one that we haven't used yet, and pull my thread all the way through it. And this is just basically to get into position to then continue adding in the embellishment on the side. So pull that, and it's going to sit right there and make a nice and neat kind of transition. And now we've gotten to the point where we're just going to keep repeating the steps in between each SuperDuo. So for this, I'm going to take one of my 15-0s, one bicone, and one 15-0. So we have three beads here, where the bicone is in the middle with one 15-0 on each side. And I'm going to just jump straight over to the next SuperDuo, just like that, and basically fill in the gap with these beads now. Don't get any knots or tangles. And pull it through. And it's going to fit just perfectly there in between. So now we're coming out of that next SuperDuo, and we just want to do the same thing. So one 15-0, one seed bead here, one bicone, and then another seed bead, and jump to the next SuperDuo. So always the outer hole that hasn't been used in the SuperDuos. And then just keep adding them in like this. And obviously move your way all the way up the sides here of the braid, adding in the embellishment, filling in the gaps, you could say, between the SuperDuos. Then when you get up here, you want to then finish in the same way. So the very last SuperDuo there, we want to just add in the bicone and then the 15-0, and then go through the bead in the same place we went through it to go in to begin with. So not the two that sat next to each other, but the one that's right across from the SuperDuo. Go through that, and then go through the braid up on the other side, and then we just repeat the exact same thing. So through that seed bead, that's in the braid right in front of the SuperDuo, and then you just want to start on that side as well. So we'll get both sides embellished in exactly the same way. So I've then made it all the way around here, down one side to the other end, and then up the other side as well. And then I'm coming out of the seed beads that are in the braid there. So just like how we started out. So all that's left to do now really is finish off the thread. So I'm going to go back through the braided part with just the cord, and basically finish off the same way that we started. So just go through here and just make sure to pull it nice and tight, so you make sure all of the beads that you just added in, there's no excess thread or anything, so they're all sitting nicely. But then I'm going to go through the braid here a few times, back and forth, again to kind of secure it in place. And then I want to start just tying a couple of knots here before I actually cut off the excess. So to tie the knots, all I'm going to do is pull it through here, and then I'm going to go through again, but then instead of pulling all the way through, I'm just going to keep a little loop, avoid some knots here, like that, and then I'm going to take my needle through that loop 2 times, and this is basically tying a knot, and then I'm going to pull it tight, just like that. And I'm going to do that a few times, so there's a couple of knots here, and you can also just add a little bit of glue if you want to make sure it doesn't come undone, because obviously we need to add the Kumihimo ends anyway. So just tie off your thread here, go through a few times securing it, and then once you've done that, what we have to do is finish off the ends with our Kumihimo ends here. So again, use some glue by adding these on, let it dry. You can add your findings to that. I already have a tutorial where I show how to add these to the ends, so I'm going to put a link to that description box below there if you need to go and have a look at that. And I'm going to be using the E6000 glue. So just do that, let it dry, add your findings, and then once you've done that, you'll have the finished braid here with the embellishment on. So this is then the finished piece. So with the embellishment down the sides there, and obviously finished off the ends of my Kumihimo ends, and then my clasp. So just my Lost Claw clasp there, and then the extender chain. And you have this kind of double-sided bracelet. There's almost 2 bracelets in one, you could say, because obviously if you're using 2 different colours, it'll match different if you want to use it for a certain outfit or anything. So it kind of just doubles it up, almost as if you have 2 bracelets in one. But that's what it looks like. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching.